Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, where we are on our third episode of the NBA Summer League series. It's our series where each episode we go through another team's summer league. In our first episode, we did the Celtics, then we did the Knicks. Both of those teams have some stuff to look forward to down the pipeline if you look at their prospects based on how they played in summer league. And now we go to the third team, and this is where things take a drastic turn for the negative with the Milwaukee Bucks. This team was a total embarrassment to the level that they didn't win a game. They got blown out in at least two of their four games. At maybe there were 5 games total, 6 games. I don't remember exactly. They maybe did they win? They didn't win anything, and several of the games were blowouts. At least half of the games were blowouts, and then even games that they had a chance to win, they blew late. They are turnover machines. The organization should look at themselves and just be embarrassed about the players that they have playing for their summer league and for their G League. It just shows that they're not finding talent. And I know that the Bucks have been one of the best teams in the league over the last several seasons, so it's harder to find talent. But the Knicks had talent. The Celtics, who've been as good as the Bucks over the last several seasons, each of them only have one championship to show for it. The Celtics had some bright spots there, and Milwaukee really doesn't have anything near that. And let's do the same thing that we did with the other two teams that we went through. Let's go first alphabetically, and then we'll highlight whatever there is to highlight, which there's not going to be as much for the Milwaukee Bucks as for the other teams. But starting from the top, they have James Akinjo. Don't recall him playing too much. Then you have Philip Alston, who is a 6'6" guy, big, strong, and he didn't really get to play up until all the way at the very end. He's an undrafted player. He's 22. He's real strong with the long hair, and he got to play finally in their final game, and he showed some stuff. But it was a little too late. He's going to need time just to play before we'll really know if he's anything. Then Badgie maybe did something on the defensive end, did nothing on the offensive end. Vin Baker Jr., don't recall him playing too much. Beauchamp had a good first game, and then after that, he was beyond dreadful to the point where they started to play him in garbage time just to try and get him going. It was really embarrassing. And he's probably the biggest example of a player who he got to play for the NBA team. This is a guy coming in with real NBA experience and a guy who was good in college, a guy who looked promising. And you would have expected him to lead this team, to be a leader. And that didn't happen at all. He didn't lead. The team didn't know what they were doing on defense. They were throwing the ball away left and right. There was just really nothing to show from this team led by Beauchamp. They gave up. They had a defensive breakdown on almost every play. So I think based off of the way he played in Summer League, I think you just cut him. There's nothing. What are you going to hold out hope for? The guy got a shot in the NBA. The guy came back for Summer League, and he showed that he's nothing. He's nothing in the NBA. He's nothing in Summer League. So I don't see what hope there is. I don't see the future that there is for such a guy. And I think he'll be lucky if he gets a chance in the G League. Then you have Hugo Besson. I don't recall him doing anything. Jameer Chaplin, don't recall him doing anything. Kehei Clark, don't recall him doing anything. He's a 5'10" point guard. Devin Ike, don't recall anything from him, a 27-year-old. Jalen Galloway, I remember his name. He got like one back cut on a dunk maybe. Andre Jackson Jr., he had good energy in their first game, and then I don't know what happened to him. I think he played in their second game, and then, I don't know, maybe he had an injury. He looked like one of their more promising guys, but that's not saying very much. A.J. Johnson, very raw, number 77, Johnson. He was probably their brightest spot. He's good potential. He's long. They have him listed at 6'4". I don't think that really makes sense. He looked way longer than that. He struggled to finish in traffic, but he's the guy on this team who it's like you hope that something becomes of him. You hope that in a year from now, AJ Johnson is somebody who he's only 19. He's somebody who you hope next year dominates. Then you have Jalen Lewis. Nothing really to say there. Jalen Lewis, another 19-year-old. Then you have Chris Livingston. He's probably one of the more bright spots on this Milwaukee Bucks team. He's a guy who kind of is built like Drew Holiday, just a little taller at 6'7". And he's a guy who's just in a lot of good action. He gets the ball around the basket. He's involved in steals. He threw the ball away a little bit too much, which was the case for everybody on this team. There were games that they started and they just would miss their first 5 shots. It took them forever to get anything going. Justin Moore, don't recall anything from him. Ade Murkey, don't recall anything from him. Ryan Rollins was probably their second best guy. But it was a case where Ryan Rollins kind of, if I had to do a player comparison, I would say he played similar to Anfernee Simons, but a little bit taller. They have him listed at 6'4". Maybe he's really 6'5". I don't know, but a drop taller looking than Anfernee Simons. He played his first game with a lot of confidence, and then as the team was so bad, I feel like his confidence went down as well. A guy who could score inside and out. He loves getting to the left hand. And ultimately a good teammate. He was a guy who tried to find the open man. Probably probably their second best guy outside of Livingston. And then you have Tyler Smith, long big man. He was okay. And then Ty Washington, who just doesn't have enough to actually make it in the NBA. He's a guy who actually was a first-round draft pick, if you remember, a couple of years ago, and he hasn't shown enough in the NBA. And then as this team started to do worse and worse and worse, Ty Washington got more and more and more playing time, and he started to show a little something, but he just doesn't have enough to actually make it in the NBA. So there you go. There's the team. The players to highlight were just how bad Marjon Beauchamp was. Andre Jackson, good energy in a game, but then disappeared. Livingston is their bright spot. Tyler Smith is their big man. Rollins, probably their best skill guy. But Livingston all around was involved in more good stuff. And then Johnson is their really raw guy who's just the guy who plays inside and outside, does everything, and just was a turnover machine at this point. But he's the guy who you're like, okay, this guy could actually be a diamond in the rough. And then I wrote number 25 was just absolute disaster. That's what I have in my notes for number 25. He was a European guy. Should I look this up just for the sake of berating the guy and kind of destroying him? I guess. Let's do it. So we're going to look at Bucks, number 25, Summer League. And who is he? It's not even showing up. So there's just not very much to see here, unfortunately. Was Garcon his name? I think his name was Garcon. Besson. Maybe it was Besson. I don't know. They had someone out there. I'm sorry if it wasn't Besson. They had someone out there who was just number 25. Light-skinned dude. He just looked really, really terrible. And then that's pretty much it. You had Ty Washington, and you had Alston showing something there at the end. Maybe that bodes well for Alston in his future. If you had to talk about good teammates here, good players who potentially have something to show, let's try to rank these guys. At the top, we're going to go with Chris Livingston for all around having good action, being a part of good plays. And then second, we're going to go with Ryan Rollins, a guy who actually has talent, but over time, playing for this horrible team, it just made him worse and worse and worse and worse. And then third, we're going to go with Alston just because third, we'll go with Ty Washington. He doesn't have enough to make it, but on this team, he was third best. Fourth, we'll go with Alston. Fourth, we'll go with Johnson, number 77. We'll move him up to 3. Ty Washington to 4. And then we'll go Alston for his 1 minute of good play at the end, and then Andre Jackson for his one good dunk that he had, and then we'll go Beauchamp, who was a disaster, and then Tyler Smith. Very little to show. This is the worst team of the three, and it's not even close. When you think of teams in Summer League and you think, well, some of these teams are just going to be dreadful, the Milwaukee Bucks were that. There's nothing coming in the pipeline for them. There's nothing to get excited about. And you better hope that they win a title over the next few years, because if it doesn't happen now with Giannis, it's not going to happen based off of who they have talent-wise in the G League. And it's just a bad look, because if you don't have good talent coming up in the G League and you're not putting out a good product and your team consistently gets blown out and can't score, then it's going to be hard to develop someone. For example, like Ryan Rollins, a guy who shows good talent, plays confidently in the first game, but then just gets worse and worse and worse, because when you're part of a horrible system and you just get blown out, it's bad for your confidence. You feel like, well, now we're not a team anymore. Now everyone has to try to do it themselves because there's no point. The game is so far out of reach. Whereas I think Chris Livingston, over time, he started to realize, I can't think about the score. There's no point. Let me just do as much positive things that I can for the team. And ultimately, that's why he sort of stuck out a little bit by the end. And at the end of the day, I think he was their all-around best guy. And then Rollins at 2, Johnson 77 at 3, and then the rest you could really just sweep away. This is really a team that you could just take the whole thing and just drop kick them to the moon and just totally start from scratch. You'd be just about as good as you would with this team right now. And better, because at least you would have a chance at improving. So there you have it, the Milwaukee Bucks, the real doomsday, horrible team of Summer League. If you had to rank them, they're definitely the worst of the three that I've gone through so far. And we'll take it from there with the next one. Our next episode, we're going to focus on the Cleveland Cavaliers, who actually played the Bucks in the first game, I believe, in the Bucks' first game. So we're going to do Cleveland next. As always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.